The latest entry in wireless charging mouse pads is here, and this time by Razer. We're checking out the new We're checking out the Mamba Firefly Hyperflux wireless power system. Wireless mice have been around for years now, and to charge them, you'd either have to connect a cable or place it on a charging dock. But in the last year, we've seen the arrival of the next best thing. Wireless charging mouse pads that continuously charge a compatible mouse. Now, just about every big gaming hardware company is now making their own. Logitech, Corsair, Mad Catz, which is still around, and now Razer, with their Hyperflux system that includes new altered versions of the Mamba mouse and Firefly mouse pad. Let's open it up and check it out. So here it is. Hyperflux Wireless Power. It won Best of CES 2018, very nice. It is powered by Razer's Chroma, so it has 16.8 million colors. And it's a set of Hyperflux versions of the Mamba mouse and Firefly charging surface. Over to the back, we get all of the main features and specs. Feel free to pause if you want to check any of these out. Now, although I appreciate this easy to open tab, I still have to use the knife because, you know, I gotta justify it. All right, let's go over what you get in the box. Hyperflux Wireless Power. First item, a quick start guide. Paperwork. Whoa, and this time we don't get 2 Razer Chroma stickers, we just get 1. Then a USB to micro USB power cable, the very nice Mamba Hyperflux, and then of course the Mamba Firefly, which is very well wrapped up, and it comes with its dual matte surface. Here's a quick look at dimensions. The Mamba has a length of 4.9 inches, width of 2.75, and a height of 1.7 inches. As for weight, without battery, it comes in at about 2 pounds, which is rarely seen on a wireless mouse. Now, the Firefly has a length of 13.97 inches, a width of 11.12, and about 0.5 inches in height. It weighs in at a hefty 1.41 pounds, and also the included power cable is 6.89 feet long, and you can also use it to power the mouse in case. Let's talk about design, the look and feel. Starting with the Mamba, it's about the same as the previous versions. Materials mostly consist of a smooth plastic with rubber parts here and there. It's a right-handed design with a nice flowing, curved shape from the back to the large left and right buttons at the front that makes it very ergonomic. The rubber mouse wheel is at a nice height to show off that chroma lighting, and it's covered with tightly formed ridges. Both sides of the mouse also have rubber sections, which helps with any grip style you may use. Then on the bottom we have 3 ultra-slick Teflon feet that make this mouse glide almost as if it's floating. Now the Firefly, same as the standalone version, has a clean and simple design. The bottom piece is a flexible plastic and has chroma lighting throughout the left, bottom, and right sides. In the middle, we have the indent to keep the dual surface in place. Speaking of which, on one side you have a hard surface for speed, and on the other, cloth for control. It's a very thin piece and it fits just about perfectly, but it's easy to remove with that lip right below. Finally, on the back you'll find that the entire surface is covered in rubber, which helps keep the Firefly in place during intense gameplay. And trust me, it works incredibly well. Down here on the Mamba, we have a 5G optical sensor capable of up to true 16,000 dpi with 450 IPS. It's also equipped with Razer's adaptive frequency technology, which constantly scans for interference, and if it finds any, it'll switch frequency to provide a lag-free experience. I don't know all that goes into that, but throughout our testing, we haven't had a single issue. The sensor's been extremely precise, accurate, and with a very solid connection. It has a 1000 Hz of ultra polling, which pretty much means how fast the mouse reports back to the PC. Then, being that we have an optical sensor, you may want to adjust your liftoff distance. That's where mouse matte surface calibration comes in. Here, you first add your surface, in this case the Hyperflux hard surface which I'm using. Each on the list is pre-configured, then you can adjust it from 1 to 10. The lower you set it to, the faster it stops tracking. Now, of course, the sensor by itself isn't the only thing that determines your accuracy. It comes down to how it, along with the weight, shape, materials, and the surface work together. The full package truly matters, and in this case, it's tailor-made by Razer themselves to offer the best experience possible. In total, the Mamba has 11 button inputs that we can customize or rebind, but at least one of them has to always be set to left click. Let's look around. As mentioned, the left and right buttons are nicely sized, very wide with deep grooves, and they're responsive all the way back towards the center of the mouse. Personally, I prefer separate pieces per button, but I actually found that these work just as well. They don't take much force to actuate, and I really like how quickly they reset. For the most part, that goes for just about every button on this mouse. Over to the tactile scroll wheel. It's covered in rubber with those tightly formed ridges that make it very easy to grip. When using it, you can feel every little step, and it takes enough force to avoid accidentally scrolling or pressing that middle click. Then, as indicated on the sides, this wheel also has left and right inputs, but oddly enough, you can't bind them to scroll left or right. Below the wheel, we have 2 DPI buttons to either increase or decrease between 5 stages of sensitivity that you can customize. Then to the left, we have forward and back buttons, which are nicely sized and positioned so you can easily use them with your thumb. They're also at a good height, so this way you don't have to worry about resting your fingers too close to them. Finally, in front of that, we have a small textured profile button, which, as you can guess by the name, lets you switch between your profiles. Unlike some of the competition whose mats wirelessly charge the batteries in the mouse, this version of the Mamba has no batteries. Instead, the mouse comes to life when it touches the Firefly mat, which utilizes witchcraft. A witch! No, I was kidding. It actually uses Razer's proprietary Hyperflux wireless power technology, which creates a magnetic field that transfers power directly to the mouse. To me, that still sounds like witchcraft. So as long as you use the mouse on that surface, that means you don't have to worry about cables or battery life. Now, you may be wondering if it dies on liftoff when using the mouse. Well, it doesn't, because the Mamba has a capacitor that Razer states retains enough power to last about 5 to 10 seconds away from the Firefly. But in our testing, we've seen it last as long as 20 to 30 seconds. We've been using it for months now without a problem, but on their support page, Razer does mention the possibility of interference from other devices, but we have not experienced any of those issues ourselves. Last thing I wanted to mention is that you can also use the mouse wired with the same cable that the mouse pad uses. So worst case, if the Firefly malfunctions or stops working for some reason, you can connect the Mamba and continue to use it. Now, to customize the Hyperflux Mamba and Firefly, you're gonna need the latest Synapse 3.0, which is still in beta. After you choose your device, you then have a few options at the top. Performance and calibration are for the sensor settings we mentioned in the previous section, lighting, which we'll talk about in the next section, and customize for button remapping. In this layout, you can choose any button you want to customize. It then opens up a menu on the left with options to make that button do a number of things, such as a different mouse function, a shortcut for custom macros, and more. Then at the top, you can create custom profiles per game or program, and on the right, you also have onboard memory to store up to 4 profiles directly on the mouse itself. The other feature that pushes the capabilities of this mouse is Hypershift keys. I love this feature. It's pretty much a modifier. The way it works is you hold down a designated Hypershift key. If you don't have one, you can assign one not only to the mouse but also a keyboard, and it gives you an extra set of bindings. So say you're playing Overwatch where your left click is primary fire, well, if you hold down the Hypershift key, you can assign the same button to something like an emote or spray. With all that out of the way, let's move on to lighting. Both the Mamba and Firefly Hyperflux are Chroma compatible, which means they have 16.8 million colors to use with effects. The Mamba has lighting on the scroll wheel and the logo on the back, and the Firefly has lighting through the left, bottom, and right edges. In Synapse, under lighting, we first have a handful of options. We have brightness, settings for the power indicator light on both devices, you can choose when the light turns off, access to 5 quick effects with a few settings, but then you have advanced effects, where you can choose from your presets or dive into the Chroma Studio. In here, you can go crazy with all sorts of customization just for lighting. To keep it short, For these devices, you have 6 effects to choose from. Take a look. You then select what lights you want to apply them to, and finally, on the right, you tweak those settings. I have to applaud Razer here because they've done an amazing job with the Chroma Studio. There's just so much you can do here. It's not as simple as I made it out to be. I mean, you can play with layers and tweak every single setting, and it gets a little overwhelming. And the last thing is Chroma apps. Those give you an immersive lighting experience with compatible games, but most of them work best with keyboards. So this is now our second wireless charging surface. Our first was by Logitech, but Razer's take on it is amazing for those of you who want a lightweight wireless mouse with incredible performance backed by solid software. I love Synapse. It comes in at a very high price point, $250 here in the States, but it honestly delivers on everything it promises. On top of that, remember that this is just the first entry into Razer's Hyperflux technology, so as new products are released, they'll most likely be compatible with one another. So instead of buying another kit, you just buy the new mouse. So this is now a part of my main setup, but I'd love to hear your opinion on it as well. What are your thoughts on the Hyperflux technology? Do you like the idea of a mouse not having batteries? And what about that hefty price tag? That's it for me. You heard the pros and cons, but it's up to you to balance it out. I'm Sir Joe IM, and I'll see you for the next box.
Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video and want to help us out, you can do so by clicking that thumbs up button. And while you're at it, why not subscribe for more content? It's free. We also love to hear you out, so please leave a comment down below or talk with us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. I'm Sir Joe IM, and I'll see you for the next box.